I followed the glucose goddess method for 30 days. Here's what happened. Okay, so what is the glucose goddess method? The glucose goddess method is a method that has been developed by Jessie Inchauspé. She first wrote this book, The Glucose Revolution, and she, in the meantime, has written a second one that's called The Glucose Goddess Method, where she dives more into practical tips and her hacks, as well as where she provides recipes. That was actually the first book that I came across from her, and that was the first time that I really learned about the Glucose Goddess Method. I really like that book. I don't have it with me right now because it's in the Netherlands and I'm in the US, but I have it at home with my parents, and I really liked her recipes. I really liked her simple hacks and tips that she provided in that book. Yeah, I've tried some of the recipes in there, one of which was the feta omelet that had been my breakfast staple basically ever since. I really love having that for breakfast. Then when I came to the US and I wanted to read this book, so I bought this one. This is her first book where she goes way more into detail and it's more theoretical than her second book. And while reading this, I decided, okay, I'm gonna really follow her hacks for 30 days and see what it does. Because I did already mention that I started eating that omelet and feta breakfast because I noticed after the first couple of times that it made me feel really full. So instead of being hungry at like 10:30 in the morning after having breakfast at like 8, I was full until lunch, and I really appreciated that. So I decided to try her method for 30 days to see how it impacted my body and my energy levels. And here's what happened. So her 10 glucose hacks are: eat foods in the right order, veggie starters, stop counting calories, savory breakfast, have any type of sugar, they're all the same, pick dessert over a sweet snack, vinegar, after you eat, move. If you have to snack, go savory, and put clothes on your carbs. So there's a couple of these that I implemented more often than others. So for example, during these 30 days, I really made sure that I tried to eat my foods in the right order. So hack 1, that was one of the easiest ones for me to implement because it's very simple. Especially like if you have your veggies and stuff separate from each other, it's very simple to eat it in that certain sequence of eating veggies first, then your protein and fats, and then your carbs. Also, a simple one for me to implement was the savory breakfast. Like I said, I'd already been having the eggs and feta omelet for breakfast for quite some time, and I really liked that. And I always ate that with some cherry tomatoes on the side, but I usually ate those first. Here were all the tomatoes, but I already ate them. So I just continued doing that. So I had that checked off. Another one that I did was to put clothes on your carbs. I almost never ate just carbs. I made sure to also eat fiber, fats, and protein when I was eating carbs. So today's lunch is a bagel with peanut butter and apple, obviously very high carb. This was just really what I felt like having, and of course I'm not perfect. So I did do the dress up your carbs with a little bit of fat. But full disclosure, this also happens. And 2 that I really implemented for the first time in these 30 days were hack 2 and hack 7. So the veggie starters, whereas normally I would just eat my veggies with my dinner, I also implemented more veggie starters before dinners. Our veggie starter is green beans with Parmesan cheese. I now really try to eat veggies before my lunch as well. If I did not have any veggies with my lunch, I made sure to have the vinegar before having lunch. Because after my omelet for breakfast, the first meal where I would have carbs would be lunch. So I made sure to either have a veggie starter before lunch or to drink vinegar before lunch to decrease that spike in glucose after having my first meal with a lot of carbs. I did try to implement all of the hacks, but these are the ones that I used most. So here's what happened. So today is day 1 of the glucose goddess method. This morning I had my savory breakfast, which consisted of 3 eggs, some feta cheese, quite a lot of feta cheese, and cherry tomatoes. And I ate my cherry tomatoes first, most of them at least, because starting with fiber, the other rule where she talks about the sequence in which you could best eat your food for your glucose levels. So here's my veggie starter, a bunch of celery, a little bit of carrot, and tzatziki. And I'll update you on what my exact lunch will be. I think it will be like a yogurt bowl. I need some more protein because I've mainly had fats this morning, which is very nice. I love fats, but I also want to get my protein intake up. So this is day 1. The first week, I really didn't notice anything. I was just trying to implement the hacks. My focus really was on getting used to having like veggie starters or vinegar before lunch, implementing the sequence in which you eat the foods and stuff like that. So the focus was really on the act of doing so and not really yet on the results. I didn't really notice anything. But then by day 8, I suddenly realized that I had felt a lot better than previous weeks. And I realized that I had way less, and I quote, super mega cravings in the afternoon. So something that was interesting about this is that I never actually started eating that differently from what I did before. I kept eating the same things for lunch. The difference is that now I made sure to either have a veggie starter or drink vinegar beforehand. So something that I would do, for example, was to eat a little bowl of carrots. I would have the carrots first and wait a little while because I was quite full from the carrots, and then have my normal lunch as I usually would. And when I started doing that, by day 8, I started to notice that then when 3:30, 4 came around, I wasn't absolutely starving and needed to have a snack. I started noticing that by around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I would begin to think, oh, maybe I could eat something. Which is so different from the feelings that I had before, where I would be absolutely starving and hangry by 3 o'clock in the afternoon after having lunch at 12. So I noticed that I would have way less hunger in the afternoon, which would very likely be because I didn't have a huge spike after lunch, which then prompted a huge dip in glucose after. By day 14, I noticed that I had way less cravings to sugary snacks, like in general. I had way less times where I thought, ooh, I really want some chocolate right now. Ooh, I really want like a cookie or two. Ooh, I really want this and this and this and this. That was interesting because that was day 14. And day 15, I noticed I had cravings all day. I was like, what is happening? The only thing I could think of was sugar. The interesting thing is that I really noticed that normally I mean like the last, 5 years of my life, I'm not kidding. After I eat lunch around 3, I start getting hungry, and then I wait to have a snack until 4 when I'm actually already like hungry. And with the vinegar, I noticed that I kind of had that like 5 rolled around, and I was like, oh, I'm like maybe a little bit hungry, like maybe I need a little something before dinner. So that was very interesting because I had never, like that's not a me thing, that's like new. So I think actually that not only trying to avoid a glucose spike in the morning by having the fats and protein for your breakfast, but also trying to avoid like a spike from lunch is actually really, really helpful. And I really hadn't expected that. So that's really interesting to me. That's definitely something I'm gonna keep like implementing, or at least trying to. And the reason that I'm telling you this today is that today I totally forgot about the vinegar. I wanted to do it, but I was so hungry that I just ate my lunch, went on with my day, and just now when it's 2:30, I was like, maybe I need a snack. Like I'm actually hungry. And I was like, what is happening? Because it didn't necessarily have a like very small lunch or anything. I think it also has to do with the fact that I didn't have the vinegar, which is crazy. I really think I had a peak, like a glucose peak. I also felt it in my energy, like I had a great energy. And now I just made a coffee and I was debating making a snack because I'm just so tired and I'm hungry. So do with that information what you will, but I honestly think it's making a difference. And obviously this month hasn't been perfect, but I do notice a difference. Like most of the days I try to follow the guidelines, or at least most of them, But then I do notice that when I don't do it, I definitely feel a difference. So that's so interesting to me. So the difference between, for me, doing that and not was crazy. And that really confirmed for me that it was worth the trouble of doing a veggie starter or the vinegar. And now, the veggie starter and the vinegar are not my favorite things, because when I want lunch and I'm hungry, I don't really want to eat a bunch of veggies, and I definitely do not want to drink vinegar. But this is really where it was confirmed for me, like, okay, it's worth the trouble, because it really did make such a difference in how my afternoon felt. Like, and how I was experiencing that afternoon, experiencing these cravings. It made such a difference that I was like, okay. So when I had noticed that on day 15, I restarted drinking vinegar or having a veggie starter before lunch in the days after that. And by day 17, so it took me a day, but by day 17, I noticed that if I did drink the vinegar or eat the veggie starter, I really can prevent myself from having these crazy cravings in the afternoon around 3 or 4. But also that I didn't have a huge dip in energy right after consuming my lunch. Previously, I would be so tired after having a big lunch, and here I kind of leveled that out. So it was great and I loved it. But since those 2 weeks, so after about day 14, and after realizing how much of a difference that made for me in the afternoon, I did not notice really anything else. So it really came down to those differences for me. Maybe it's because I was also already eating like quite healthy before, and I had already noticed the difference that a savory breakfast makes for me previously when I had first implemented it after buying her method book. So that wasn't a big change that occurred during these 30 days, because I had already realized that and really enjoyed that and started eating a savory breakfast more often. So for the rest of the 30 days, I just felt good. So I've just finished my lunch, started with a veggie starter, and now I'm in the mood for something sweet. So I'm gonna listen to the Glucose Goddess advice of having your sweets as like a dessert and not as a snack on its own. I just bought these mini milk chocolate peanut butter cups. My friend recommended these. They're from Trader Joe's. Apparently they're very good. So this is gonna be my little treat. So I'm just gonna have a couple of those as my lunch dessert. Delicious. Nothing else really revolutionary changed for me, but I did notice that it made me feel a lot better when I kept those hacks in mind. So the big conclusion is that if you have not tried these hacks before, start small, but really do give it a try, because I think it makes such a difference in my, like, how I feel just during the day. I haven't really noticed any weight loss or anything like that, but I never was like interested in that per se. I was just really curious about how it would feel for me to implement these hacks and how I would feel during the day when doing that. And I was honestly shocked by how much of a difference it makes for me in my afternoon. I thought I was just cursed to have a crazy dip in energy around 3 or 4. I thought that was normal. At least it was normal for me. So during these 30 days, I was really precise and kind of vigorous about following these hacks. Since then, I've been implementing them a little bit more low-key, and I just implement the ones that really fit in my lifestyle. So the ones that I keep mentioning, but the savory breakfast is definitely a staple for me. Also eating it in the kind of the sequence, eating veggies first. I don't do the vinegar that often because I just generally think it's not that pleasurable. Also, I don't want to like hurt my teeth. I did drink it with a straw and everything like that, but still, I don't know if it's worth it for me. I would rather do the veggie starter. Also, I think she writes that that has more effect anyway, so I would rather implement that. And also, I definitely don't stress about it. Like, if there's ever a time where I do just eat carbs without putting clothes on it or anything like that, there's no crazy. That was all just my experience. In all, I really enjoy it. I love her hacks and her tips, and I've been really liking implementing them. I'm definitely gonna continue to keep them in mind in the future. And and implement the ones that really fit in my lifestyle. Yeah, that's it for now. If you have experience with trying the glucose goddess method and you have any tips for me, please leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!